The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
The International Monetary Fund is worried about the cryptoization of the developing world, this week warning that crypto market volatility is destabilizing capital flows in emerging markets. The Financial Times reporting the IMF is concerned that developing economies face immediate and acute risks as a result of their existing established currencies being replaced by crypto assets. They've repeatedly recommended that El Salvador stop using Bitcoin as legal tender. Joining us now is Ray Youssef, CEO of crypto trading platform Paxful. Hello there, Ray. Thank you for joining us. So you have big news. Paxful has opened La Casa del Bitcoin, also known as the Bitcoin Educational Center. You're providing free and accessible learning opportunities around Bitcoin. There's a couple of images there. Learning opportunities around Bitcoin and financial literacy. Contrary to the IMF, you think hyper-Bitcoinization is the idea that Bitcoin could become the default value system of the world is a good thing, that it would benefit millions and not millionaires. How do you see that playing out in El Salvador?
Well, there's a lot of work to do. I encourage everyone to go to El Salvador. To them, there's a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people think that Bitcoin is an initiative by the government to help negotiate Bitcoin with the Chivo wallet. The Chivo wallet is a wallet created by the government of El Salvador to propel and support Bitcoin, but it's independent of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is independent of it. People don't realize that. Simple little things like that. People still don't realize that you can own a fraction of a Bitcoin. So there's a lot of work to do to educate. Bitcoin is something that is a lot bigger than El Salvador, and it has little to do with the president of El Salvador. And that's why we're there, because everything begins and ends with education.
Yep. You have a bit of a spotty connection, but we'll continue on. I was hoping you could address the IMF's concerns. In many cases, people need money immediately to buy food, pay rent, fill basic needs. They need stable money to pay for those things. So how do you square that up with Bitcoin, where one day your $50 worth of Bitcoin can buy groceries and the next day it can't?
It's a great question. So Bitcoin is something that the narrative that we get about it is a speculative asset class. You can buy it and maybe you'll be rich if you hold it for 2 years. And it has actually worked out that way. But as a day-to-day tool, it is quite volatile, considering a lot of the manipulation that happens in crypto. But as a peer-to-peer platform, is that the people of the world, the global south, especially the emerging markets, they use Bitcoin as a tool for remittances, for payments, and the price really doesn't matter because they're using it as a means of exchange. The people of El Salvador don't realize that yet. They're beginning to, and that's one of the reasons why we opened up the House of Bitcoin, to show people what Bitcoin's killer app really is. You don't have to be able to buy a cup of coffee or a papusa in the street for Bitcoin to be a success. It has tremendous value in allowing people to break out of the financial apartheid they find them. El Salvador doesn't have this problem much because it uses the US dollar. But for other countries that don't use the US dollar, it's a tremendous problem that we in the West have a hard time even conceptualizing, unless, of course, we go and ask them ourselves.
If the issue is the convenience that digital assets provide, why not a stable coin? Why put them in, as Christine was asking, why put them in a situation where potentially they could end up one day not having money in a very short term when it's needed to buy those groceries, to pay for rent, to pay for whatever. And we in the West and richer countries can say, oh well, this is the key to the future and everything. But if you have an empty stomach, do you really care whether or not this is the key to the future? If you need to pay for your bills and you can't because the price of your asset has fallen so much, so fast because of manipulation outside in other countries and other markets, the way that Bitcoin is being manipulated and traded in very sketchy ways every day and every night?
It's a valid concern. And if you talk to people on the streets of El Salvador, they'll actually echo that concern. So El Salvador uses the US dollar and have a problem with accessing other markets because it's the US dollar. It doesn't have a problem with volatility because they use the US dollar. But if you look at a country like Nigeria or Turkey, they have huge problems with wealth preservation. In the 1980s, 560 naira would get you 1,000 US dollars. Now, 5 naira will get you 1 US dollar, right? So El Salvador doesn't have these concerns, but there are other use cases of Bitcoin that the volatility really doesn't factor into. For example, if merchants in El Salvador want to be able to trade freely with other countries in Latin America, they could do so with Bitcoin as a means of exchange. It really doesn't factor in, at least only for maybe a half hour or so. And that is truly the actual power of Bitcoin, in that allows global markets to flow freely. It replaces SWIFT, where SWIFT is ineffectual.
But wouldn't a stablecoin do the same thing?
It actually would.
An asset-backed stablecoin or an algorithmic stablecoin?
Stablecoins actually do that very well. USDT has seen incredible success, especially in peer-to-peer markets. But Bitcoin is another animal entirely, in that Bitcoin has a resilience that USDT does not. Already you're seeing that USDT is being investigated. Now, of course, you could say maybe they could switch to USDT, but there's something special about Bitcoin, and our biggest markets are in Africa, where the people have taken tremendously to Bitcoin, while USDT and other stablecoins are available. The question is why? There's always the investment aspect of it, but again, your question holds. If someone is hungry on the street and they need money now, they're certainly not looking to any for the future, right? It has to solve problems for them right now. It's a valid concern, but Bitcoin can't solve every single problem for everyone all at once. This is a long-term play. The president of El Salvador is looking at the long haul, and the IMF is looking right back at him, and it's spreading. We have had tremendous interest from the Middle East and in Africa specifically about adopting a Bitcoin standard, and we're in talks with them as well. They don't use the US dollar, these countries, so it actually offers them tremendous benefits that it doesn't offer El Salvador, which really makes me respect President Bukele for bringing this into the picture. Bitcoin in El Salvador rolled out in the smoothest way possible. There were a lot of questions that people had, and there's a lot more education that needs to be done before people truly understand this. And that's why we built the first educational center, because everyone has the same questions that you're asking.
Ray, just zooming out of El Salvador for a moment, Paxful has some very unique insight into just global adoption that a lot of other companies don't have. And so earlier you were on the show and you said that Africa is leading the world in cryptocurrency adoption, which was like a really interesting stat. I guess one question is that still true? And are there other interesting just kind of global or regional trends that you've seen that we might not be aware of?
Africa is definitely leading. They continue to lead, and the lead is growing bigger and bigger every day. However, we're seeing something tremendous happen now in India. Bitcoin is now taxable by up to 30% each transaction. So you're seeing a lot of new energy happening in India around Bitcoin. It's not illegal anymore. And this happens every single day. Geopolitical events, domestic changes in policies, regulators opening their hearts and educating themselves about Bitcoin, things start to move and people start coming to Bitcoin. So peer-to-peer is really the best place to see how Bitcoin is affecting people in the real world, whereas centralized exchanges are not. For example, in every bull run, centralized exchange volume and business goes through the roof, while peer-to-peer volume remains steady. And when the bear market happens, everything collapses except peer-to-peer volume, which actually starts growing more and more and more, because it actually shows what's happening on the streets, honestly.
It's interesting that you mentioned India. We've talked about India a lot this week. So just putting aside that recent news, just from your experience or from your data, are you seeing cryptocurrency adoption in India growing? And is there a way to put it next, like how big is the Indian cryptocurrency market just in terms of the rest of the world? Any insights you have on this would be really interesting.
India is growing tremendously, absolutely. I mean, we saw our volumes more than double in India last year, and we weren't even really trying. India is over 1 billion people, and the Indian people are special beyond their numbers. They have a certain fire in them, which reminds me of Syrians, actually. So I think you're going to see an absolute explosion of cryptocurrency in India. Let's keep in mind that people in India, they use gold as a wealth preservation tool. they're starting to learn about Bitcoin, and it's becoming easier and easier to get Bitcoin, and now they can buy Bitcoin with their bank account. You're going to start seeing a mass shift in India, and it's going to start leading the world as well. It'll be right up there with Africa soon.